Terve, as we say in Finland, and welcome to this first full segment of the YuuZoo story. Now, events in the last 12 months or so have quite significantly changed the storyline on what has happened. Some new, formerly unknown information has emerged, which, as I said, very much changes the whole storyline. So therefore, I will today, not as I was originally planning to do, dive deep into YuuZoo's structure and business idea, although I will go through that as well. But I will I will rather go directly into the claims that have been made against YuuZoo and its top management. And I will show that those claims are simply not true. I will also show that the stock exchange regulator has done a miserable job. Instead of engaging in a constructive dialogue with YuuZoo, which would have saved the investments of some 10,000 or so shareholders, and I am pretty certain made YuuZoo into probably the most valuable company on the Singapore Stock Exchange. Instead of entering into this dialogue, the regulator decided to completely ignore all approaches from YuuZoo and engage in a futile attempt to make YuuZoo look guilty of things that it simply was not guilty of. So let's start with the business model. The business model was revolutionary when YuuZoo was founded in 2007, 2008. Nothing like YuuZoo existed outside of China. In China, Tencent had launched a similar platform, a platform where we combined some new things that were happening in those days, new things, like social networking that Facebook had started with about 3 years earlier, e-commerce that Amazon had started with a few years earlier, mobile payment, which basically didn't even exist, and we were amongst the first to launch it with our proprietary YouPay platform, and mobile games, which also didn't exist in a large number. For example, Angry Birds was launched only 2 years after YuuZoo was founded. So we said, why do you need to go to one place for your social networking, another place for your e-commerce, a third place for your payments, fourth place for your games? Why can't you get it all from one single place? Just like if you go to a shop, you don't go to one place to buy your milk and another place to buy your meat and the third place to buy your fish and the fourth place to buy your wine. You get it all in a supermarket. So we created a zoo of networks. And just like in a zoo, your zoo, YuuZoo, just like in a zoo, the lions are in one place, the elephants are in another place, the penguins are in a third place, and so forth. So we created what we called tribal networks, and we had literally hundreds of these tribal networks, where people joined in tribes based on their interest areas, which could be football, it could be music, it could be design, but it could also be specific brands in these areas. So in football, for example, Manchester United. In music, for example, Rolling Stones. In fashion, for example, Gucci. And then people gathered together and they were exchanging views, chatting about whatever they were interested in with like-minded people sharing the same interest. Now, today in 2025, this might not sound so revolutionary, but it indeed was revolutionary way back in 2007 and 2008 because nobody else did it in those days. YuuZoo was the first outside of China doing this thing. Now, the response to this was very, very positive. People loved this. However, we faced the same challenge as any other new company. How do we grow the business? How do we make people all around the world aware of this? Because also, to go back to the business model, we said we want to tailor this for each market. So we want to make it language specific. So in France, it's in French, in Spain, it's in Spanish, and so forth. But also, what we wanted to offer people also should be tailored to the local market. Now, across the road from where I was sitting in those days was a McDonald's. And McDonald's, as probably everybody knows, is based on a franchise concept. So I said, why don't we do the same? Why don't we create a franchise business where we create the brand, we create the technology, we create the platform, we create the solutions, we offer a basic menu of products, but then in each market, we sell the right to a local franchisee who then designs it for the local market. So just like McDonald's has in every McDonald's around the world, there is a Big Mac, there is French fries, there is a Coke. We said we will have certain key products, key offerings, which are the same in every market. But just like as McDonald's in Finland is offering a burger which is tailored to the Finnish bread taste, or in Singapore, my adopted home country, a spicy burger adopted to the Asian taste. YuuZoo in each market would allow the local entrepreneur to tailor everything for the local market. Now, this again was something very unique. Nobody else did it in those days. And we did it by selling these licenses initially for cash, but later on, before we got listed, and by the way, YuuZoo was formed in New York, in the US, but was then approached by certain parties in Singapore, where I had lived already for many, many years, who said, why don't you list this on the Singapore Stock Exchange? And the CEO of the Singapore Stock Exchange in those days, the Swede Magnus Böcker, was very much supportive of this idea. So he said to me, Thomas, absolutely, I want to modernize the stock exchange. That's what he was brought in for to do by the Singapore government. And your company defines what I want to have on this stock market. So we decided to go ahead and do it there. Now, just before we did that, somebody at YuuZoo, I believe it was our head of sales or franchise sales, came up with the idea of selling these licenses not for cash, but in return for shares in the company that would operate these franchise operations in each market. I felt it was a brilliant idea because that would enable us to grow with the franchisee. So let's say that the franchisee in the US would become extremely successful. Already then, although all of these things were quite new, we understood that these companies could be worth hundreds of millions, even billions. So to own 40%, which was what we decided that we would sell it for, 40% in the company that would operate it, to own 40% of a company that could reach a market cap of 10 billion would mean 4 billion worth of shares, which we then could sell for the benefit of the shareholders, as opposed to the 1 to 2 million that we had been able to sell these licenses for in cash before this. So we said, let's do this, but in order to do it correctly, we need somebody, one of the best companies, or rather, we need somebody to tell us exactly how do we book these shares in our income, in our balance sheet. Coming from a background at Nokia, where I had been for 16 years, in senior positions, first as the global head of Nokia's corporate marketing and branding and PR at the head office in Helsinki, and then as the area director for Asia Pacific and the CEO for Nokia Southeast Asia, based out of Singapore from 1986, I knew the importance of using the best possible advisors, be it in auditing or be it in law or be it in whatever. So I turned to KPMG, one of the big 4 auditing firms of the world, and said to them, this is what we want to do. We want to sell for shares. How do we book these shares? Are they worth something? KPMG in December 2013 came out with a report where they said, yes, of course they are worth something because you are selling something and you are getting in return shares in the company that will operate the technology that you have created. Of course they are worth something. And you need to book them as income, and then you will put them as assets for sale on your balance sheet. KPMG said, in order to know what you book, you need to value these shares. Now, you can do it yourself if you think you know how to do this, or you can ask somebody from the outside to do it. Now, we knew how to do it ourselves. However, in order to avoid any criticism of us having, created numbers that were not true, I said, we'll give it to another big four firm. So we went to Deloitte, and Deloitte did the valuation. We gave Deloitte completely free hands to decide how to value these shares. And Deloitte, in the report that they then sent to us, said that they had chosen DCF, discounted cash flow, to estimate the future earnings of these companies, which all were startups. So they said, in order to value the shares correctly, DCF is the correct method. There were other methods, for example, to base it on the cost of the development work that we had done in creating the technology that we sold, but they said, no, that does not take into account the future earnings potential. So DCF is the method that we want to use to value these shares. We had said, you are the experts, you tell us how to do this, and you do it. So they did it based on DCF. We got the report. When we got the report, Deloitte said that the shares that we already had received, and this was in 2015, just after we had gotten listed, were worth, and I don't remember the exact number now, but it was worth somewhere between 20 and 30 million dollars. So in order to make sure that we did everything correct, I personally contacted the regulator of the Singapore Stock Exchange. I said to them, we now have this report, which I sent to them. Should we publish it or should we not publish it? Should we tell the market that that we have sold shares which are worth whatever it was, like I said, let's say 25 million, and book it as revenue and then put it in the balance sheet as assets for sale? The stock exchange looked at it and came back and said, yes, you should, and told me it's always better to give more information than less information, which of course made a lot of sense, because if we would not have published these numbers, then we inside the company would have had information that the market did not. That would have made us insiders. We would have had more information than the rest of the market, and we could have used that to trade shares. So we wanted to be as transparent as possible. This was always our policy. Tell everything. We were the first company in Singapore to create a website where we had a dialogue with the investors, where we answered questions from investors. We were as transparent and as open as you can imagine with all the information. We also used, as I have just explained, the best possible experts. KPMG, Deloitte, two of the big four audit firms that are used by all big companies around the world. Now, they cost a lot of money. We could have saved a lot of money by having somebody smaller and local to do this, but we wanted to have the best possible advice. So this is how we got started. This is how we got started in 2015, after listing in August of 2014. We got started by creating these deals or selling these licenses to the franchisees in a number of countries, getting paid in shares, owning 40% of each company that operated our license in their respective markets, and booking it as we were told to book it by KPMG and Deloitte. Now, in the next segment, and because of the way things are now developing, we will not wait for a week with the next segment. The next segment will come in a matter of days. And we will then continue with a pace of, say, 3 to 4 days in between the various segments. In the next segment, we will dive deeper into what exactly did KPMG and Deloitte tell us, how were we supposed to book these shares and the values, and how did we do it, and how did we report it? Because that is what the Singapore Stock Exchange regulator later on came back, changed their minds, because they had been the ones we turned to, and they were the ones who told us that we should publish these numbers. They later changed their minds and started to claim that, or rather said that YuuZoo had misled the markets through announcing these numbers. We will dive deeper into this in the next segment. We will examine what exactly did they say. And in future segments, we will have experts, international experts on accounting, on auditing, give their views on what YuuZoo did. Was it correct or was it not correct? We will, in this story about YuuZoo, be as transparent as we were when we were operating. We will tell absolutely everything. If it's negative for us, we will not have any problem in telling it, but we will tell everything and we will leave it to you, the viewers, to decide, did YuuZoo do something wrong? Or is it so, as I believe, that the regulator got led astray, didn't understand our business, which was new in those days. Auditors told us that nobody in Singapore understands the digital business. Nobody in Singapore understands how you value these shares. So was it so that the regulator simply didn't understand? Was it so that there were other things, which we will get back to, that influenced the view that the regulator had on YuuZoo and on the people behind the company? And did that all play in when ultimately the regulator first stopped trading, then asked the police to investigate whether YuuZoo had misled the market, and ultimately in 2024, less than a year from where we are today, in July 24, delisted the company from the Singapore Stock Exchange in spite of the fact that the company had all the funds available to continue its operations. That we will get back to in the next segments. Thank you for now and hope to see you soon again. Bye.